Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, maybe the only show that shows you how to close the wealth gap in your own life with the man who's done it for many, our wealth coach himself, Tyrone French. Hey, Tyrone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Closing the Wealth Gap. I'm your host, Tyrone French. Also, if you like the podcast, if you like this content, I want you to go to closingthewealthgap.net, hit that follow button. It'll help us out. But also, I want you to stay connected with me anywhere in the world. So what I would like for you to do is to download my free app. Get all my information, resources, calculator, and everything just at your fingertips. All you have to do is simply download my digital app. Again, it's absolutely free to access my platform. Just visit TyroneFrench.com, TyroneFrench.coach, or text Tyrone French to 36260. So let me repeat this. Go to www.TyroneFrench.coach or text Tyrone French to 36260. Also, you can send me an email. Send me your questions. Just go to coach@TyroneFrench.com or simply call Tyrone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 877-296-5192. That being said, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to bring in my good friend, Mr. Paul Roberts. How you doing, Paul?
I am excited at this conversation. Wait till you hear this topic, folks. I never thought of it this way.
Well, it's something, I was planning on doing another show based on us having the guest from the RAND a couple of weeks ago. But as I was driving into the studio, I was thinking how, there's in the news, you got this music mogul, Sean Combs, P. Diddy. Right. Yeah. And basically, his homes were rated, had mansions and, airplanes and, the Ferraris and all this stuff, the high life.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself that a lot of people see this image, but they will never, 95% of the population will never reach that level of success.
Yeah.
But they buy into the fantasy. They buy into the illusion of it.
Can't take their eyes off it.
So,
like the royalty of old, or watching the British royalty or something, or any of these celebrities. We aspire that, but we dream it's a fantasy.
But again, what happens is, what they're gonna basically break down is that this stuff is not real. It's an illusion. It's an image. And these entertainers create these images. They create these personas. And I don't know. I mean, people in the United States are innocent until proven guilty. I don't know the backstory as far as all the stuff that's happening, the reports and the documentaries that are coming out about this gentleman. But what I can say is that there's a brand that was created, and he has various artists that are creating content that people are subscribing to, whether they're songs, their videos, which drives culture, the way they think, the way they act, the way they dress, the way they sound. And so, again, when people having this illusion of wealth, meaning that you can look at a young man that's walking down the street wearing a baseball cap and have like 5 or 6 platinum chains on.
Yeah, we got to keep you closer to the mic there.
In the video.
You're getting excited.
In the video, you have these platinum chains.
Yeah.
Whereas the person on the street, they can't afford the platinum chain, so it's probably iron. Or stainless steel.
Stainless steel, yeah.
But again, they have that look, they have that image, and it's not real. And so coming into the studio, this theme just came to me about the anatomy of wealth.
The anatomy of wealth. That's what struck me. I've never heard it. I've heard it described as the structure, like a building. You build wealth. It's a thing, but it's a cold, soulless, no personality to it. You're saying it's alive.
It's an entity. It's
an organism.
It's just like the economy.
Yeah.
You have business cycles, and you have the economy. It inflates and it constricts. It expands and it expands and contracts. And so if you look at it as
It
far as
grows like a living entity. It grows.
everything grows, you're either going to grow in a positive direction or you're going to grow in a negative direction.
But my house doesn't grow.
You're right.
My house is a physical structure, and that's what I think of my wealth. It's just a physical thing. It's a bank account.
But look at your equity.
Well, yeah.
Has your equity grown?
See, there you go.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if we can apply these terms to things that are happening in our lives every single day, what it does, it gives us a better foundation or understanding of the foundation as far as how things work. So I want people to start thinking about the anatomy of wealth.
Okay.
And I'm talking about not the 5% of the population where, the 5%, they're going to be fine. But it's the 95% of the population that don't understand the anatomy of wealth and how it grows. How to actually, basically, how to even start the process.
So anatomy to me suggests the human body, and I got to understand how the heart pumps and how the lung works and how the blood flows. I got to understand this. It's an organic system, and it's alive, and it changes, and it responds to different stimuli. I feed it, it gets better. I don't, it gets sick. All these interesting ideas. I never thought about my wealth as anything but a pot of gold or a bank account.
I tell you what, let me give you Chat GPT's definition of of anatomy.
Okay.
Anatomy is a branch of science that deals with the structure of organisms and their parts, including organs, tissues, and cells. It involves studying the physical structure and arrangement of body parts and how they relate to each other within an organism. That is a classic definition of wealth and how it comes together.
And you are, my friend, the absolute first person that ever planted that image in my head, that gave me that perspective on it, that made me look at it that way. I don't think most people think of it as a living, breathing entity with cells, with structure, with a flow like your blood or your lung. It's a system that relies on all these components, and if it does it, it's healthy and it grows. If any of these components get out of whack, it gets sick and it dies.
Exactly. So I tell you what, the anatomy of a poor person when it comes to wealth, what they focus on are income and expense.
Right.
And that's all they're going to focus on. And you hear it in their terminology based on, I got to go to work so I can pay my bills. Again, income and expense. I got to go to work to generate income. I have to trade time for money.
Because I got these expenses.
Yeah. And so just like going back to the anatomy of entity, I got these expenses that are compounding. My expenses are perpetual, which again, we don't look at it as though as far as, let's say you have income and your income is derived from you trading time for money. Whereas when you're talking about wealth, your wealth is perpetual. So the income is coming in whether you work or not.
It's a separate thing that's growing or dying or changing, but it has its own life cycle to it, and it's lives outside of you.
So when you understand the anatomy of wealth, what you're going to do is you're going to change that mindset and that narrative from thinking income and expense.
That's better. Let's get the mic up like that.
You're going to change the narrative from income and expense and just trading time for money so that you can go out and make somebody else wealthy. Because the minute you say, I have to work so I can pay my bills, well, then who are you paying your bills to? Business owners. To wealthy.
And who are you making wealthy? The guy you're working for.
Exactly.
The man.
So the middle class, what they do is they focus on income, meaning that they may have a high paying job. They may be making six figures, but they're focused on the liability column because they're loaded with liabilities, meaning that they have the house, they have the car, they have the Rolex watch. Okay. They have the charge cards where they're going out and they're taking the trips. They're doing all these things to whereas they're running up all this debt. And it's funny because we call it credit, but it's actually bondage.
Yeah, you've talked about that's a whole nother show here.
Yeah, it's actually bondage because again, if you really
I owe my soul to the company store. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I owe my soul.
And so it becomes natural, meaning that the more money that you make, the further in bondage you tend to go. Meaning that you've acquired this credit. And so now, let's say if your credit is, you got a credit card and it's got $20,000 on it, $20,000 credit limit. If you're earning a high income and you have a $20,000 credit limit, then you can put $2,000 on that credit card. And based on your utilization is still low. It's only 10%. Now, when somebody else is trying to play the same game because they see you and they want to do exactly what you're doing, but they don't have the same income, nor do they have the same line of credit, their credit card probably has a $2,000 credit limit on it.
They've maxed it out.
They've maxed it out. So they're hurting themselves by trying to play that game because they don't understand the anatomy of wealth and how credit is a part of that cycle. It's a part of the body. It's a part of the organism.
So let me give you this. Maybe this is related, maybe it's not, but we had a guy who was a very successful business coach, Xerox and big companies. And he wrote a book and did a show with us for a while. He called it The Living Organization. And I said, well, you just mean that's like, it looks like a living entity. He said, no, the whole word corpus, the word corp from which corporation comes, means body in Latin.
Yes.
So it is not just a body of people. When you get a bunch of people together, he said they do function like cells and they contribute. There's now a group think. There's a group mind.
Yes.
There's a group. And he said, and a company, if it's done right, should have a soul to it. It should have some purpose and meaning and whatnot here that goes on generation after generation. He said, the analogy is much more than just a surface one. It's really true that it becomes a living, breathing entity, this company, this organization that we all belong to. So why not then your financial, whatever you want to call it, your financial structure, your financial, I don't know. I always think of this outside of me. It's not me. It's outside. It's money comes in and money goes out, and things are out there, and they're things. They're not alive. They're not me. But you're really making me think it is part of me.
Well, again, even the Supreme Court rule based on Citizens United that corporations are people.
Yeah. See, that was
And
mind-blowing.
and so now corporations can donate unlimited amounts of money to candidates.
And they have rights to free speech and other things.
Exactly. So again, but if you don't understand the anatomy of wealth and how these things come together and how they actually work, it's like speaking Mandarin. You don't get it. You don't understand it. So therefore,
what's my role?
But here, let me finish. Therefore, you cannot capitalize on wealth because you don't know what it is.
Wow. Say that again. There's another one I got to think about. You can't
capitalize on wealth because you don't know what it is. You don't recognize it. It could be staring you right in the face. Your opportunity could be right there, but you don't recognize it. And you go back to the same mindset of whether you're trading time for money, meaning that you're the working poor and you're trading time for money to pay your bills, or you're in the middle class where you're earning maybe a high six-figure income, but everything is based on those liabilities, because those liabilities will eat you. Now, here's the third example.
Okay.
The rich don't think like that.
No.
The wealthy don't think like that.
Right.
Their priority is the asset column. See, when you look at a financial statement, it's broken into two pieces: income and expense, assets and liabilities.
Right. Supposed to balance.
95% of the population, they focus on the income and expense. 5% of the other, within that 95%, they're loaded down with liabilities, which stops them from creating the wealth that they need to create, because they have an illusion of wealth. Like I said, with the rock stars and the rappers, you have this illusion of wealth. Mm-hmm. But the undergird is that there is no wealth. It's just bondage. But wealthy people focus on the asset column.
So, two things. One, you're telling me that there's two sides to the equation, and there should be some balance, some equilibrium between the other. And immediately I think what my doctor always says: let's get your body in balance here.
Yes.
You're sleeping too much, you're drinking too much, you're eating too much, you're out of balance.
Right.
And when we're out of balance, we're sick.
Yes.
So if we're out of balance in our what would we call this again? Our
physical body.
Our physical body. Why not in our, not just
financial body?
Our financial. So there's a physical body, a spiritual body, and a financial body.
Yes.
You mean it's more than this? But I got this.
You know,
And I got some of these. I got some of these. Look I got one right there. It says 20 on it. That's wealth. That's all wealth is. Get one of these. And get a bunch of these and put them in a bank.
it's
And
funny.
the more
That's not even. It's not even money.
it's
It's not even money. When you understand wealth and the anatomy of wealth, you realize that what you hold, that Federal Reserve note,
yeah.
it's a debt instrument. As a matter of fact, if you read it, it'll call it's a debt instrument
This note is legal tender for all debts.
for all debts. So every
I
dollar.
can use this as an instrument, like playing a guitar. I can play this, and it plays.
What does that mean? Every dollar that's in circulation has been borrowed. So what that means is that every dollar that's in circulation, because it's been borrowed, it's earning interest. Somebody's paying interest on it.
Wow.
And guess where the money came from?
It came from this guy right here. He
The
gave it to me.
The Federal Reserve.
He gave it to me.
It came from the Federal Reserve.
Uncle
And where did
Andy.
they get it from?
They printed it.
Out of nothing, out of thin air.
They stuck some paper in a press and put some green ink on it. They put Andy Jackson's picture on there. Andy's the only one I see. I'd like to see more Benjamins, but I don't see too many Benjamin Franklins. They put some dead president on here, and that's it.
And because you can get $20 worth of goods or services from that piece of paper,
Yeah.
you believe in it.
Some people will rob for it. They will work all day for
Rob,
it.
steal, and kill for it.
Anything to get that piece of paper.
And guess how much value it has? Zero intrinsic value. Zero intrinsic value. Same thing with that credit card. People look at the dollars and they think about the economy and they think about inflation. And they're saying that they're putting too many dollars into circulation, which is causing inflation. Nobody's thinking about the credit cards. Nobody's thinking about bank credits. You have more bank credit in circulation than you do actual dollars.
Yeah, right. Because I really never, I'm old. My dad was driving me crazy. He said, always have $20 bills. So I always stick a $20 bill. That's about all I ever have. Because everything else I pay for this. This is so much easier. And I get a summary at the end of the month. And I can put it off if I can't pay it right now. I'll pay it next month. I'll pay it a month from now.
Do you know every time you swipe that card, it generates a fee?
Yeah, well, because yes, I learned that because I collect the cards sometimes from people too, and it's like the money they say here, we'll give you $1,000, and then I go look at, they didn't send me $1,000. I got 5% less than that.
Every time you swipe that card, it generates a fee.
Yeah, and who gets it? The bank gets it.
And let's say certain cards, based on your, credibility, and your history, you may have to pay an annual fee just for having the card.
I do, just for the privilege. I give him $100 or something just to hold that because it's got a cool color on it. It's got a dark color on it.
So whether you use the card or not, they're making money.
Yeah. And when I whip it out, everybody goes, ooh, we've got a black one.
Yeah, and when you swipe it, they're making money.
But it's all about making me feel good. Anytime I want, you want something, honey? Pull that out.
But
there it is.
My point is, that's wealth. But is it wealth for you? No.
No.
It's
the illusion of wealth.
See, we want to get to the point where your assets are generating income. And here's my definition of wealth.
I mean, these aren't my assets here? These two things. I got these two things.
What got you those two things? The dollar, that actual note,
Yeah.
and that actual card are effects. They're
Right.
representations.
Right, but
of something.
paid my bills on time, and I made money, and somebody gave me a salary. I have some evidence of collecting money and spending money wisely.
So I'm gonna give my listeners a reality check, and this is gonna be a hard saying
Giving
for a
me
lot
a
of people.
reality check.
It's gonna be hard for some people to understand this, or to even realize it, or even to accept it. But if you don't have income producing assets, then you are the income producing asset for somebody else.
Say that again. I am the income producing asset. I think I'm working for somebody else. I'm working for Uncle Sam. I'm working for the credit card company. I'm working for all this stuff here. They're all making money. I'm producing income for them.
You are the income producing asset.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, as a citizen of the United States, you're a taxpayer,
Yeah.
which is generating what? Revenue.
For
What? For the Treasury.
Yeah. For
That the IRS collects. It's a system, and when you understand the anatomy of wealth, now you can see these different entities and how they work together to create an organism that's living and breathing. And you can try to unplug from it,
Yeah.
but you're so ingrained because you're taught, you're indoctrinated that this is how everything works. This is how it functions. So let me give you my definition of wealth.
Okay.
You're wealthy when the income from your assets exceeds the outgo from your liabilities and expenses.
Well, anybody can do that if you really were smart about it. That's what you're saying.
Anybody can do it, but most people won't.
Oh, no.
And why? Why is that? The thing is why? Why is your source of power? Without why, without understanding why, you are powerless.
Mm-hmm.
You're powerless. So when you understand why, what is the reason? What is the purpose? What is the intent? When you have that, when you can see that, now you can see the opportunity. So now you can make a choice. Now you can make the decision based on the choices that are in front of you. Mm-hmm. And based on your intent, you'll know whether you need to go left or right or stand still. So now you're not being dictated to
You're
outside
blowing my mind
circumstances.
You're
You become more proactive, Paul, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when you understand my definition of wealth, meaning that the income from your asset, when you're wealthy, when the income from your assets exceeds the outgo from your liabilities and expenses. Here's the thing. I got to add this. There's a difference between having wealth and being wealthy.
Mm. What's the difference?
Major difference. See, let's say if it costs you $5,000 a month to live.
Okay.
Okay. And you have an income producing asset that's spitting off $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Now your wealth at that point is $1,000, $1,000 a month. But you have wealth, but it doesn't make you wealthy. Because see, wealth is measured also in time. Mm-hmm. So give you another example. Imagine now you have an income producing asset that's spitting off $5,000 a month, and your expenses and your liabilities are $5,000 a month. Mm-hmm. At that point, you're wealthy. Because now your liabilities and your expenses are being taken care of, not by you trading time for money, but by your assets generating income.
And then you have more time to do what you want.
Now you have time freedom, but you also have financial freedom. Mm-hmm. See, again, people talk about being, financial literacy. You're going to continue to be financially illiterate if you're not focused on the asset column. Mm-hmm. People think financial literacy is based on income and expense.
Mm-hmm. I just gotta conserve and learn how to manage
and save, and things like, But no, you have to understand. Financial literacy comes from the asset column. You are financially literate when you're generating income from your asset, meaning that you're not trading time for money. Your money is making money for you. Your assets are generating the income. And when we go out and we trade time for money, we take some of that income and we go out and we buy a liability, which is a car in most cases. Mm-hmm. But if you lose that income,
you lose the car.
You lose the car because because the liabilities eat you.
Right.
The reason you can tell the difference between an asset and liabilities is if you lose your income, your assets will feed you. But if you lose your income, your liabilities will eat you.
They'll swallow you.
They'll swallow you whole.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're perpetual. Most people you hear them talk about residual income or royalties and things like that. They want a passive income coming in, but they're never talking about perpetual debt. Mm-hmm. They never talk about passive debt.
But here's the point. The light bulb's going on my head. You and I grew up in different worlds. You grew up in South Central LA, tough neighborhood. I grew up in suburbia, classic middle-class suburbia. In both of those cases, I don't know anybody. I didn't know anybody growing up that had any assets that produced income on their own. My dad, maybe he had a couple of stocks, but he didn't. He worked, got a nice salary, and he turned around and paid it out for a car and for a house and for everything else. I don't remember if my dad stopped working, the money stopped coming in.
Same thing with my dad. All I saw him was getting up, going to work, and spending all this time at work, and then coming home
Yeah.
exhausted. He would eat,
Right.
spend a couple hours, and then he'd go to bed, take a shower, go to bed, and get up the next morning and do the same thing.
Right.
And so when I saw that, Paul, something clicked in me to where I didn't want to live that lifestyle.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. My mentor, meaning that just like Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he had a rich dad and a poor dad. I had a rich dad and I had a poor dad. And my rich dad, his name is Jerry Smith. He still lives in South Central LA. Matter of fact, he was a Vietnam veteran. But the thing is, he bought real estate. He owned real estate. And even to this day, I mean, I mention his name because I call him Pop. But to this day, he could drive around in a pickup truck, and you would never know that this guy is a multi-millionaire. But I used to work for him when I was a kid. We used to cut his grass. We just washed the cars. I had a Schwinn bike, and the thing is,
They were the best.
yeah,
Oh my God.
but the thing is,
Schwinn.
I didn't buy the bike. It was in a trash heap, and I found this bike, and because he was he worked in cabinetries. Did cabinetries and stuff like that. Had his own business, but he was using the money from the business to purchase real estate. But he had this workshop in his backyard. So what I would do is I would go over there, and he had these classic cars, vintage cars and motorcycles and things.
Yeah.
But he had a workshop in his backyard. And so I would either cut the grass, I would wash the cars or whatever. But then my time was to spend the time in the shop. So I'd strip my bikes down. When he painted his motorcycle, guess what? My bikes got painted.
Cool.
And so, but he modeled this lifestyle to me to whereas when I grew up, I wanted that same lifestyle. But growing up in South Central LA, I didn't necessarily like going to high school, but it was something I knew that I had to do, but I just didn't, sitting in the classroom all that time, back then they didn't have homeschools. And so if I had been, or even having the internet,
Right.
if I could have gone to the class on the internet, I would have graduated from high school instead of getting my GED. But because he was telling me about the military and Vietnam, and he spent time in the military, in the army. In high school, I ended up being in ROTC, NJ Navy ROTC. And so when I finally did go to the Navy, I got my GED. I went to the Navy. I was an E2 when I went to the Navy. So by the time I got into basic training, I became an E3. And so when I got to the fleet, did not really understanding the job that I want to be in, I finally I was designated or selected to become an avionics technician. So as becoming an avionics technician, I made E4 extremely fast. But again, on the track that I was on, I never went to A school in the military. I never went to B school.
But here's my point. So people think, I'm just guessing, I didn't grow up in South Central, but you think, I just got to get out of here, I got to get over there, which means I got to get a better paying job, move to a better neighbor, bigger house, bigger car, and all that. And I'm telling you there's no difference. You're still working for somebody. You still don't have any assets. It's still income and expenses.
It's a bigger treadmill.
Just a bigger treadmill.
It's a bigger treadmill.
And I have a very good friend of mine who's a very successful attorney, makes well six figures, $400,000 a year. And I said to him a couple of years ago, I said, well, man, it must be nice to be wealthy. He said, wealthy? He said, every time I make more money, I spend more money.
Exactly.
I'm just on a bigger treadmill. He said, I'm no further. If I stop working, and he's still in his 70s, he's still working. And he'll work, he said, till the day I drop. Because if I stop working, the money stops coming in.
Because money cannot make you rich.
Right.
It can't make. See, it's not about how much income you earn. Again, you can make a high six-figure income. It's how you make your income. It's how you earn that income. And again, so if you
time or from assets.
If you're making a six-figure income, but you still have a poor person's mentality, it doesn't matter how much money you make.
I think we all do. I think we all got a poor person's mentality, but we have the illusion. My father grew up very poor, and so his illusion was, I'm going to work harder. And he rose up in the company, and he was able to leave the rough, tough neighborhood he grew up in and moved out to the suburbs and that was success. But it was just bigger bills and bigger income and bigger expenses.
So I preface that by saying, with just like with the rappers, they have an illusion of wealth,
Yeah.
and people, they aspire to have that type of lifestyle.
Right.
But it's the same thing in corporate America. They have an illusion of wealth. They may be wearing button-down shirts and silk ties and Oxford shoes and wearing the Brooks Brothers suit, and you put whatever profession you want to put on it. You can put doctor, lawyer, accountant, but if they're still thinking, have that poor man mentality, it doesn't. They can make millions, a seven-figure income. They'll still be trading time for money.
Yeah. Right.
Unless you understand the anatomy of wealth and start focusing on your asset column.
Nobody had an asset, though, in my neighborhood. Nobody had a second job. Nobody had a
Sure they did.
thing that produced something.
Sure they did.
They had a house that had it went up in value. Yes, okay, I guess they had
The thing is, what you got to do is, once you get on that frequency, you begin to search these people out. Meaning that you begin to recognize it. I'll give an example. Just like having a BMW. And all of a sudden you decide you want to get a BMW. Now all of a sudden you decide that you want to get a white BMW. Guess what you're going to start seeing all over the city?
Yeah, white
BMWs.
Right.
So when you're focused on creating the anatomy of wealth and creating wealth, now you begin to see people that are creating wealth that are just not trading time for money. So now you can see the business owners. You can find the contractors. You can see all of these people, or the investors. And so now you begin to have a conversation because now you're on their frequency. And I can tell you almost without a shadow of a doubt, wealthy people, the more money that they make, the more generous they are with their time and with their information. Meaning that if you ask them the right question, they're going to give you the answer. And they're not going to BS you, because time is valuable. So they're going to tell you exactly what you need. So if you're still struggling financially, if you're still like I said, have that poor mentality or that middle class mentality, but you know people that are creating assets, one day a month, invite them out to lunch. Invite them out to lunch and sit there for an hour and just listen. You don't need to talk in that scenario because you know what you're doing. You know where you are. You know where you're anchored. So your logic and your mentality at that time is not going to do you any good. So just listen to what this person tells you and then implement. Take action on what they're telling you.
Are you listening out there? I'm trying to listen.
But it's a simple concept once you understand and you get on that wealth concept.
You know, I'll leave you with this. I've been privileged to know, mostly by sitting in here, some very wealthy people, as guests, as hosts, whatever. And sooner or later, if I have the chance, I say, man, how'd you do that? And they all give me one answer. It's simple.
It is.
And I say, then I'm an idiot, because I don't see how it's simple. I'm still struggling to make money to pay for what I got and to make some more money so I can get some more stuff.
People associate the word ignorance with, it has a negative connotation. It doesn't mean that it's not negative. It means that you just don't know.
Yeah, right.
You just don't know. So again, once you associate yourself as far as being on that frequency, again, it was because of my background in electronics.
You're thinking wavelengths and frequencies.
We got AC current, alternating current.
Right.
To this day. But the founder of alternating current is Nikola Tesla.
Right.
And he said, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibrations. If you want to understand the universe, and again, he's the father of AC, the father of wireless. All of these inventions back in the day during Thomas Edison.
He's very genius.
Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't care about money. He was just a pure genius. He was a creator. He created all of these things that we're taking advantage of now.
But I give you a sad ending to that story, and you know this. That
Yes.
Nikola Tesla, for all the genius he had in this understanding that he didn't have assets. He created this for someone else, George Westinghouse or
Exactly.
Thomas Edison, and they turned it into electricity, sold to everybody. Not
He gave
Tesla.
away the rights to the patents. Had he not done that, he would have had income-producing assets that he
Right.
could have passed down for generations.
Yeah.
Just like the Rockefellers. But they found him in a hotel room.
at the end.
Yeah, broke, penniless.
Right.
So my point is, But if you want to understand, he says something very profound. If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, here's my spin on it.
Okay.
Because of my background in avionics and electronics, I realized what he said was poetic, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't accurate. If you want to understand the universe, again, this is Tyrone French coming from that GED philosophy back in the hood. If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency, because that's how it works. It's the energy that produces the vibration that causes the frequency. And so all you got to break that down, look at the ebb and flow at the beach. The waves are coming in.
They come in, they go out.
Right, they come in and they go out. But as that wave is coming in, it has a vibration, meaning that, let's say the wind is the energy that causes the wave, which is the vibration, which hits the shore at a certain frequency. The frequency is the time. Frequency is measured in time.
I should turn you on to a podcast that I discovered. I'll have to go look it up. And it's a woman. This is pretty out there, so give me a second. The whole podcast, she has these special mics that she attaches to, I forgot what they're called, but special mic that she attaches to a bridge, to a building, to a rock. And then she listens to the sound it makes. And they're all at a different frequency.
Yes.
And they act, and she said, no, we don't hear it because our ears can pick it up. You got to put a mic right up against it and feel the vibration. Because anytime you have a vibration, it creates noise. Noise is just vibrations going through the air that your ears pick up.
Yes.
And so she measures that vibration and she picks it up and turns it into a sound that you can hear. And the whole podcast is the sound of the things around us.
You know, that's a whole nother podcast, because when you think about creation, everything was created by the Word. Yeah, in the beginning was the Word.
And then the Word became flesh.
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So here's when we talk about Word, what are we talking about? Sound.
Yes.
We're talking about sound.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
But that's the only way to think.
God didn't just think it. He had
That's
to
the
say
only
it.
way to think about it.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. When you're on that frequency, you begin to see the clarity. You get clarity. Yes. And it becomes obvious. So
wow. Well, this is, I'm gonna have to listen to this one a couple of times because it isn't obvious to me. All I was taught is go work, save your money, and then buy good things. And if you want more things, work harder and get a better job. And that's the definition of wealth and success. And then these other crazy people, I don't know how they do it. They don't have to work. The money just comes in. It grows on its own. It has a life of its own. And I don't understand that world.
You have to create an income-producing asset. And some people say, well, how do you do that? Well, I'm going to give you a piece of advice. And I know we got to go. We're running out of time. But I don't care, every financial advisor, I don't care if you're a registered investment advisor, I don't care if you're a chartered financial consultant, I don't care if you're a
stockbroker,
a certified financial planner.
Right.
Nobody can contest what I'm about to tell you right now.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, there's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. Mm-hmm. If you want to create wealth, first thing you need to do is buy that book. Richest Man, it probably costs you about $5 or $6.
Okay.
But
I got that right here.
But there's a saying in the book.
20 of these.
There's a saying in the book. One of the characters says, I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep. And a lot of people, they're trying to go to banks. They're trying to borrow money to create assets or start a business when you can actually generate the capital yourself.
That's another show.
And it's about creating the right habit in order to do that. But that's another show.
That's another show. All right. Today you showed me that wealth isn't just a dead thing, a pile of paper in a bucket somewhere, pieces of gold in a bucket there. It has a life of its own. It's a living, breathing entity. And if you bring wealth alive, it will feed you for the rest of your life.
Not only that will it feed you, but it will feed your kids and your grandkids for generations to come.
Right. But if you don't know what it looks like, you don't know what this creature looks like, you walk right by it, and all you're doing is just trading time for money.
Trading time for money, and you never get there that way.
Never get there.
So here's the thing. This is what I want you to do, though. If you like this content, go to closingthewealthgap.net, hit that follow button. But what I want you to do is download my free app to access my platform where you have contact with me. I want you to visit www.tyronefrench.coach, or text Tyrone French to 36260. You can email us at coach@tyronefrench.com or call Tyrone French at 877-296-5192. And I'm going to leave you with this. Tyrone French is closing the wealth gap.
That's our show for this week. Closing the Wealth Gap. The one show, the only show that shows you how to take control of your financial future. Right here in Orange County's only community radio station, OCTalkRadio.net.